Hello everybody, we're back. We wanted to show you how the steering head turned out on this bike that we took apart yesterday. At this point we're confident just the bearing races did seat, but we had it apart, inspected the bearings, everything's fine, no damage. So my tip for you is to kind of be on the lookout for your bike. If they loosen up, you'll feel it when you pull, particularly the front brake. If you sense a clunk, you know, any kind of a clunk or click, then that's likely what it is. And but if you don't drive the bike, meaning, and I don't mean call a tow truck, I just don't mean go on a trip or put 1,000 miles on it. If you feel that your steering head bearings have come loose, you should go to the dealer and have them adjusted so that you don't damage the bearings at all, and then it's just a simple adjustment. So a couple of tips and pointers for what we saw and found. I'm sure there are some do-it-yourselfers that'll be trying to do this work themselves. Up in here, the locking tabs on the adjuster nut, it's a special locking tab plate. Those tabs point forward and backward. There's not going to be any way for shortcutting it to get up in here where my fingers are wiggling and bend a tab up and make it so you can do the nut, get the nut off. You have to remove the steering yoke itself in order to do that. So the other thing we kind of discovered yesterday, I was concerned because I didn't understand what they were doing to retain the steering yoke, because I think if you remembered, I showed you there is no bolt or cap on the steering yoke. There's nothing holding it, effectively holding it down to the bike from popping off. But what they did was, you can kind of see if you look across the line of the bolt, Honda cut a horizontal groove into the steer tube. So when you pass the bolt through the steering yoke, it's a secondary securing mechanism. So even if the bolt came loose, it would, the lock nut would have to come loose, which is basically impossible. Then the bolt would have to fall out, which would be highly, beyond impossible. But at that point you'd be in trouble. But still, so they've done a pretty good job of making sure that that's safe and won't come apart ever. Let's see what else. Oh, so like I said, this one we caught it because we were in the process of just riding the bike. We haven't put a ton of miles on it, but in that process we felt it change from the time it even came here to us. So it was easy enough to adjust it out. They are ball bearings, not sensitive to torque. Like they're ball bearings like came original in the old Goldwing. This one's 100 millimeters. This one I couldn't measure exactly, but it's about 75 millimeters. So really big bearings. The lock tab is a little weird. So it has the two tabs that you see here. Actually, hold this. So the lock tab is one plate kind of stamped out of steel. It has the forward and backward tabs that point down. Then it has two tabs that point up. The one on this side is hooked in, and it drops into a notch that's cut into the steer tube. The one on this side is kind of what secures it. So if the tab's like this, there's a tab on the left side. You'll bend the left tab back from the top of the bike with the yoke off. And that allows you to slide it over with this hook out of the groove and then slide the whole thing up off. And so I found when you put it back, you can kind of pre-bend it in, and it's kind of a little bit springy, and you can just push it down, with a little force, and it'll come in, it'll snap into place. Because again, there's virtually no room in there to work to bend the tab back. So anyway, I just found pre-bending it was helpful. Let me see if there's anything else I can tell you about that. Well, anyway, at this point you can kind of, one more thing. So anyway, you can see the steering head moves nice and free now. I'm moving the bike, no clunk, no click, bearings tight. One trick thing though, I suppose if you're doing this yourself, you won't have your shock absorber out. That's going to be unusual. But if you happen to have the shock out for some reason, and you set the steering assembly down, it makes the tie rods drag. So you'll think the bearings are dragging. So you can wedge, just any old piece of wood or something just between the steering arm there. then you can check make sure that the steering's not dragging in any way. So this all feels nice now. Everything's good. No concerns. So that's a little update on the steering head. Be sure to keep an eye on your bike and watch for that.